Oracle Guided Learning, and particularly the free version, which is called Oracle Guided Learning Included. And here with me today is my good friend and colleague, Rachel Griffiths from Oracle. And myself, I'm the CEO and founder of Fudge Learn. We're an Oracle training provider. I'll tell you more about that just in a minute. Rachel, would you like to briefly introduce yourself?
Yes, thanks, Tony. Morning, everybody. Lovely to see you all here. So, as Tony said, I'm Rachel Griffiths. I run the solution architecture team for what used to be called Oracle University. We're now Customer Success Services, but we focus specifically on education and enablement solutions within Oracle. And I'm thrilled to be here today to talk with Tony and you all about Oracle Guided Learning Included.
Brilliant. Thanks, Rachel. We have a panel for Q&A. So please, if you have any questions as we go along, please ask those questions. I know Rachel will kindly adjudicate for me while I'm presenting, and I will return the favour for her while she's running through her demonstration of the solution itself. We'll also have a couple of polls here today as well, assuming the technology allows me to do that, and we'll have some interaction as well. So without further ado, we'll move forward. Now, in terms of Fudge Learn, who are we? We are an Oracle partner, first and foremost. We are a Oracle end user training provider, and that covers Oracle Cloud, SaaS applications, as well as the Oracle e-Business Suite and other affiliated products such as PeopleSoft, JD Edwards, etc. We provide training around end user and technical training, including analytics, and we are a guided learning partner. Therefore, we can implement Oracle Guided Learning, provide consultancy services, as well as managed services on an ongoing basis as well. We specialize in bringing users along the journey onto new ERP systems, whether that's cloud or otherwise, and that includes change management, communications, and coaching for end users as well. So I hope that gives you a bit of a flavor about us. We've won a variety of awards with the UK OUG, the user community, which we're very proud of, and we're also a government G-Cloud provider as well. So now, I said I had some polls to run. Now the challenge is I've got to try and figure that out. So I'll come back to you on that in just a minute, because I think we're running out of time already. I'm behind where I need to be, so I'm going to move on if that's okay. Now, what is guided learning? Oracle Guided Learning is a digital adoption platform. There are a variety of digital adoption platforms out there in the market. The key thing about Oracle Guided Learning is that it's actually embedded into the Fusion application product. It's the only one that is, and therefore it does streamline this process significantly in terms of building digital content within the application suite as well, and we'll talk about that and how that's leveraged. The whole view of guided learning is to simplify processes for users by prompting them in their point of need, live in the system. That obviously increases their knowledge, their proficiency over time, and certainly helps with data integrity for the user community there as well, and obviously the organization. It certainly drives their productivity, and remarkably speeds up the adoption processes for new system processes that underpin business processes. So in terms of some additional reports that are out there that help to, kind of bring this to life, a lot of issues around usability or system issues or related subsequent service requests are driven from a lack of knowledge or errors that are derived from users within the system itself. So obviously that's a big issue for most organizations. Equally, there are a number of digital products that users have to use. How do we streamline that and reduce the resistance across multiple digital platforms? And how do we streamline those processes? Well, Oracle Guided Learning certainly caters for a lot of these challenges, which we'll get further to as we talk across. So within guided learning, the aim of the product itself is to really accelerate the adoption of Fusion applications. And I say Fusion applications because from an Oracle Guided Learning Included perspective, that's where we're going to focus, because that's where Oracle Guided Learning Included resides. You can use Oracle Guided Learning outside of Fusion applications, but that is a separate product in the premium product, which we'll come to as we discuss further down the track. What we're trying to do here is unlock the new business best practices and drive efficiencies in terms of embedding the training that your users will be provided, give them more productivity and support when they're in the use of the application at that particular point in need. So how do we do that? Well, we provide with Oracle a simplified process that helps to change the product goals as you mature within the system, drive through the workflows, and certainly enable the building of these prompts and these tools as we use Oracle Guided Learning and the users use the system. So we'll talk about some use cases around that. We're going to talk about the user experience. Obviously, that's a primary thing, and how we can gather insights into that experience itself by using analytics that's built within the product itself. Now, this is an IDC report, statistic base here, and they found that when adopting a digital adoption platform, particularly Oracle Guided Learning, that there was up to a 63% reduction in support requests. Now, I think Rachel and I have got different figures on this one. Hers, I think your figure is about £15 a service request ticket.
That's
Rachel,
right.
wasn't it?
Yes. Our research suggests that for every ticket raised for each user, the average cost is around £15.
Yeah, mine was £14.72 when I did my research, so we're not far away. But essentially, you multiply that by however many thousands of users you've got for a full life cycle of a service request. That's a significant amount of money, and obviously, utilising guided learning can reduce the day 1 to day 10 service requests when you go live significantly. About how do I do this, and they're mainly the biggest challenges that users face when they go live with a new system. They equally found that there's a huge amount of adoption that's sped up with the migration process, up to 52%, and certainly a large scale enhancement when it comes to embedding change and embedding training for the users, and a 3-month payback on average in terms of your investment. So it's significant. I'm going to skip through this poll again, I'm afraid, due to lack of time, but I'll forward this on some of these questions on post-event, so we can at least get some feedback from you guys, if that's okay. So how does Oracle Guided Learning work? Well, it's a software tool that's layered on top of your Fusion application. So it will work on HTML-based applications. It's a no-code console, and within that, your configuration content is managed from there, and your analytics also is managed from there. So we can, within there, edit your assets, and there's multiple assets that you can have from an OGL perspective, and we'll talk about those shortly. And equally, we can look at how these assets are activated. These are managed through the console, and how the content is provided to the users, but this is predominantly based on roles and context within the system. So it's a contextually driven product. So only procurement users will see procurement related guides, for example. So it is not something that will get in the way of your users. It's there to enhance your user experience and the use of the system itself. So looking at some of the key features here, we have the console that I've just talked about regarding the management of your assets, your items, your guides. We also have within there the libraries of content. Now, depending on what product you use with guided learning, whether it's the free version or the premium paid version, there's different content that's available to you, and I'll cover that shortly. Within the features, you'll have obviously the in-application guides that will be created. And again, I'll break those down into their component parts shortly. Within the use of the application, there is a help panel. You've got the guided learning, what we call the widget here, that will reside on your machine, on the actual user interface itself. And once it's clicked, that will open up the help panel, which will show the contents that have been developed for you. Oracle provides as well free business process training. Now, this is based on Oracle's best business practice, and that can be made available to every user within your organization, which is really powerful. And I've been through some of this business process training. It's actually very, very good. And then from the back end, you can then analyze the guides and understand what guides are performing, where the users are dropping off, etc. What's the most relevant search that people are using, and that will help you to drive the enhancement of these guides to get the best benefit as you mature into the system itself. Rachel, anything to add there?
No, I was just going to say one of my favorite elements of guided learning is actually the analytics, because being able to see exactly what your users are doing and what they're looking for enables your business to feed into that continuous improvement. You instantly know what users are looking for help on, and you can immediately respond to that and provide that in the flow of work without any interruption, without any downtime. It can be literally a matter of minutes.
Very good. Now, we talked about the product and where it would reside, and what we've done here is try to bring this to life a little bit. So we're looking at the Fusion applications, which is the product is directly embedded into these products. So on the left, you've got the Fusion ERP application suite, Fusion HCM. We've got elements of CX, which is Sales and Service Cloud. We've got Procurement Cloud, projects, and supply chain, some elements of supply chain as well. Now, that's where OGLI or OGL included will reside. Now, if you are a premium customer, you can then via a browser extension extend out to applications such as EPM, some of the acquired products such as CPQ and Eloqua, and any of the industry specifics, as well as HTML-based on-premise apps such as JD Edwards and PeopleSoft. What you are able to do, as long as the majority of your guides are Fusion related, you can then extend these out to third-party applications as part of an end-to-end process. So you can reside from Fusion, go out to a third-party product, and then back into Fusion, for example, as an end-to-end process. So what are the sort of common uses for guided learning? Well, messaging is a key element where you can reside communications live in the system that would be related to specific user groups or specific business units, and they can be driven by role, they can be driven by region and by application. So very targeted messaging that helps to drive go live or your regular release in terms of the quarterly update information. You may have adopted some new functionality, or equally there may be some change in policy or procedure that you need to announce, and that can be driven live from within the system itself. When it comes to using the application, we've got products such as Smart Tips. You can see one here. It's a tip that you highlight by holding the cursor over the question mark, and that could be adapted to suit the end user's requirements. And within there, it will hold specific information that will help the users in terms of data field entry or policies, embedding those policies within the use of the application. And equally, we can drive learning content. So where we've got training videos that your company may create or Fudge may create on your behalf, we can drive these through and embed them into a guide that will present on the user screen itself. So these are just some common uses here, and I'm sure that Rachel is going to give you more of an insight into some of these during her presentation and demonstration itself. So I think the key thing really is to think about where you've got technology change, and we talked about the quarterly releases. Some of the changes you have to adopt. Others you may, for functionality reasons, move them further down the line, or you may adopt them yourself. But certainly where you've got those changes, Oracle Guided Learning can support that in terms of pointing out these features to your users when these new system changes arrive, live in the system. Alongside that, if you have a process change, this can be equally supported in terms of a tip or a message that can guide this information through. We can also embed policy information, so that can present to the users, where you've got a change in an expense policy, for example, that can be embedded into guided learning. Equally, when you've got a user that really does need support in terms of the decision they've got to make in terms of the use of the system, this is where, for me, one of the big key benefits are. It's in terms of really helping them to, signpost that direction for them and avoid any errors in terms of data entry or the use of the system itself. Rachel, anything to add there? No,
I think sorry, I was answering a question by somebody, so you caught me on the hop.
Sorry.
No, I think you've covered it really well, Tony. I think the main point here is the ability to communicate as and when you need to, regardless of what that's about. It doesn't have to be about the application. It could be about, your period end policy has been updated, or there is an announcement around an all hands meeting which is happening. So all of those things can be communicated across the entire user base very, very quickly.
Excellent. Couldn't say it better myself. And on that note, I'm going to stop presenting now, and I'm going to pray to the Lords and everything else that you can actually show our attendees the system itself, Rachel.
Let's try this.
Keeping my fingers crossed. We had some bugs with this previously, everyone, so that's why I can see your screen, Rachel. Fortunately.
Marvelous. Hopefully everybody else can too, and it's not just you, Tony.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. I'll go through a couple of scenarios that I find resonate really well with our customers, and Tony's mentioned a couple already. One is that initial onboarding is how are you going to handle all of these people possibly working remotely, different countries, different offices. How are you going to get them all onboarded? Now, what I've got here is their first experience of guided learning. They may not even, they probably don't, in fact, know that this is guided learning. They've logged into Fusion and this is what they're presented with. This is actually one of those messages that Tony was talking about, where we've said the first time a user logs in, we want to display this experience, and we want to ensure that everybody knows how to navigate. So no more creating quick reference guides that somebody's got to quickly photocopy and do all of those things, or email and stick to people's desks. So we can actually embed that into the solution. You can see we've included a nice video here that could be any content. If I click on next, my option here, we've decided to include and amend our guide slightly here to say, well, actually, before we let users rampant in the system, there are some things that on day one we need everybody to do. So we're giving them the option to do those things straight away. It might be things like setting up a bank account. This is critical to everybody. We all want to get our paychecks at the end of the month or the week. So what we've done is included what's known as a branch to support that process. So I'm going to say I want to go and manage my bank account. That's now activated the guide, and it's telling me, as you can see on my screen, exactly where I need to go. It's a live application. This isn't a video or a simulation. As I move through the screens, the guide comes with me. It's telling me again where I need to click and giving me some sort of high level information here about adding some details. As I hover over the add button, what we've done is actually included one of the smart tips that Tony mentioned, and we've hidden it. So it doesn't have to be visible. If you've got a busy screen with lots going on, the smart tips don't even have to be in the way and visible. We can hide them so that when the user hovers over the particular field or element, they will get that interactive experience. So I can see here, giving me some information. I'll click on the button, and it's now going to move forward, and you'll see some more of those appear. So it's telling me here I have to have 10 digits. Now I'm going to deliberately get this wrong, so you can see how we support data quality and data validation. So it's told me it has to be 10 digits. Now obviously I work for Oracle, so we're looking at an American configuration here. Let me just see, my routing number is 9 digits, so let's try and get this one right. But if I try and save now, you can see guided learning is saying no. It's not Fusion that's saying no at this point. It's saying the element has been disabled by the guide. That means guided learning is checking what you've entered into this field before it will allow you to click on the save button. So as soon as I get this number correct, let's see, how many do you want? 10. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There we go. As soon as I get that correct, I'm allowed to save. So data validation can be made very simple and interactive without confusing error messages being presented. So I'm going to cancel out of here. Actually, no, do you know what? I'm going to save that one and get the error message because my routing number is wrong. Never mind. So then it's directing me back to my home page so I can finish off that initial welcome guide. So I'm going to click on next, and what it's doing now is introducing me to where I need to find certain pieces of the system. So this is my quick reference guide. I'm going to step through quite quickly on this one, but what's important to notice is we've introduced what's known as the overlay. This kind of fogging effect allows you as the administrator of guided learning to focus people's attention on the information you're providing while preventing them from sort of exploring on their own. This actually prevents the user from interacting with Fusion. You can see my mouse isn't active, so I can't click any of those fields. I'm going to carry on going through looking at the items I'm being told to. And then I'm going to get to this one because a common question is, how do I tell people about guided learning? Well, we use guided learning to tell people about guided learning, particularly in a welcome message, whether it's at the beginning or whether it's at the end, introducing people to their widget, explaining to them that they've got help always available. So let's just switch that welcome guide off and enable my screen. It all comes to life. Before I jump straight into that widget, I'd like to talk about the small flashing icon that's immediately above it. It's another one of those smart tips that Tony mentioned, and it's an extremely popular one. If I hover over that tip, it's giving me information about when my quarterly updates are happening, and that could have a significant impact with your users. Processes may change, content may change, screens may change. So having an awareness of when that's happening and the potential impact means that you know you can educate your users, direct them to guided learning, because Oracle provide the content. If you're a premium customer, they provide that content every quarter in line with Fusion releases. Now, as a guided learning included customer, you don't have the same access to that, but you do still have the ability to notify your users and reflect that change so they're aware there are likely to be changes. And I can make that disappear just by saying, yep, understood. So I've had my navigation, and Calvin here is a team manager. I think he's the procurement manager actually for this business. Let's look at some typical examples, maybe after the first couple of days. If I open up my widget, first of all, you can see that all of my content is organized, and you can organize the content in any order by any grouping you wish. You don't have to have it looking like mine. But it doesn't just include guidance. Some of these items that we're looking at here, for example, are courses. You can link to your learning management system directly and contextually by role to indicate that people need to go and do learning. So if I look at any of mine, I can click on getting started with procurement. Obviously, I'm going to go to an Oracle learning platform. And I can go off and explore how to figure out procurement. Now, if I go back, if I was to log in as an HR person, I'd have different content available. But that doesn't have to be Oracle content. It could be LinkedIn, it could be content owners created for you, or documentation that you've created yourselves. So I'm going to collapse that section there. And underneath, in a similar vein, we've got policy links, what we've called policy links. This is any reference material. As long as it is accessible to your user, you can include links to frequently used reference material. Things like policies, chart of accounts, anything along those lines, expenses and travel policies, these sorts of things can be opened directly from the widget. The user doesn't have to keep a copy safe and get out of date. Everything that they're looking at is the link you're providing to the latest information. And in a second, we're going to look at an alternative way of providing that in the flow of work. So back to my widget, I'm going to just collapse my policies and talk about what we've got here. So this, as Tony said, is contextual. I'm on my homepage, huge amount of content. I can search my widget for what I need. So let's say I need to log an absence. I can search my widget. That is tracked in the analytics that we'll look at shortly. And I'm going to go and say I need to go and submit an absence request. But before I do that, the user has an option about how they experience this guidance. We can have this as the interactive process that we've seen, or we could have it as a static view that shows the user almost, well, it is entirely end-to-end process with every screenshot, every instruction before they ever do the process. So I'm thinking about complex processes the user doesn't do very often or has never done before and is feeling anxious about starting and relying on interactive guidance. They can preview it all. It's easily shareable via email or producing it as a document, but obviously this is accessible to everybody. And I can simply check whatever that process is to make sure I've got all of the supporting information before I start the process. Now, let's jump in and do my absence request. And you'll see that we've included something called a deep link. So it's taken me straight to the page. The guide has started. And this guide is very clever because it knows, because of the way it's been built, that if I select, let's talk about jury service, something we don't do very often, I'm going to do jury service. I've never done it in my life. I don't know if I get paid. I don't know if I have to book annual leave. What do? I need to look at the policy. So instead of sending them back to the widget or a wiki page or a SharePoint site, I can simply embed the link in the guide itself. So there's no extra work for the user to do. We can send them at the point of need to the content that's relevant. But let's say it's not jury service. Let's say it's something a little bit more frequent, unfortunately, which is sick leave. As I change the type of leave, the guide changes as well. It knows that I don't need to know about jury service if I'm registering myself off sick. But this is an example of what one customer did when they deployed guided learning live at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. They amended the guide to include specific help for their users because they'd deployed Fusion, everybody was suddenly remote. They wanted to make sure everybody felt supported during this very scary time. They gave them a web page to look at directly in the guide. They gave them an email link which is actually opened on my other screen. Here it is, which is an email template where somebody needed urgent assistance. It was pre-populated as an email template, and they linked that to their guide so that somebody could get immediate support. Now, I'm not suggesting we want to generate lots more emails. We clearly don't, but it's something that's available to you as an option. I'm not going to go all the way through the process and go about all the options, but it doesn't matter whether it's training, whether it's jury service or paternity leave, all of the options can be covered in a single guide. Okay, let's talk ERP and some alternative approaches. Now, I have, during the COVID, talking about COVID, I didn't travel at all during COVID, obviously, as many of us didn't. And that meant I didn't log expenses for almost 3 years. Now, you know, I'd like to think I know how to log an expense. I've been doing it for long enough. But in 3 years, we've had 12 quarterly updates. That's a lot of potential change to manage where people haven't done this process. How are you going to support them in that? How are people coming back to the office, going out to lunch, meeting clients? How are they going to tackle that? So what we did, and we actually deployed this within Oracle, was we automated a proactive message and said, look, we know you haven't done this for a while. Do you need to create an expense report, or do you need to look at the policy? These are some frequent options. So if I said I need to create my expense report, again, the guide kicks off. You can see we've got the link to the policy here, but if your eyes are drawn to the top left, you'll also notice a small red flashing light. This is an alternative way of providing documentation where the user can see there's something that's relevant, something that's pertinent here and now. And again, they simply hover over it to see the information you're providing at the exact point they need it. So if I carry on through here and just create my expenses report, I want to get to the point where we can see some more smart tips. So let's say I went and met Tony for lunch. I didn't, but you know, I think he owes me one. So let's click on the create item and move this through. Oh, just taking a second there to come up. Now you'll notice here that we've got some smart tips coming up. My guide is running, but if I close my guide down, those tips remain. You can have tips as standalone items on a screen to provide field level contextual help for any user. And if you think about expenses, this is a frequent one for us, is when I log my expense, is it the date that I incurred the expense, or is it the date I'm logging my expense request? To make sure you get these things right. And we did actually have a customer who resolved a huge issue where the thresholds for expenses were different in different parts of their business. So we use smart tips so that everybody put the right amount in, because people were getting frustrated that their expenses weren't being paid. Finance were frustrated because they couldn't do what they needed to do. So there's always a way to solve these problems, but it doesn't have to be big and it doesn't have to be complicated. My last one is going to be another ERP example. And Calvin, as I said, is a procurement manager, so he's going to have to go off and raise himself a purchase order. But as I come back to my home screen to start that process, you'll notice I'm getting this message front and center. Now, one of the interesting things, which is quite subtle, is that Calvin does not have the option to close this down. He has to acknowledge it. That means you can track how many people have interacted with the message in our analytics. Now, I'm super conscious of time, so there is lots more we could talk about, but let me talk about the back end and the analytics, and then if there are some questions later, then we can talk about some of those other items there. So I'm going to make that go away by clicking on the Done button and just jump into the console here. So I'm going to sign in with my guided learning account, and I am an administrator. So this isn't an area of guided learning that all your users would require. This is purely for your administrators, whoever is going to manage the content. This is where you can see on the left-hand side, what we're looking at here is the content that is available to you. Sorry, the content you've got and that you are utilizing. And you can see up at the top, there's a banner for our included customers. You can create 15 items completely free of charge and utilize those across any aspect of Fusion to promote that kind of user experience that we've just seen. You've got a count that runs at the top to keep you informed. That does not include any of the business process training that Tony mentioned earlier. We'll talk about that in 1 second. So I want to go and figure out how am I going to best support my users. I can come into the library of use cases. This is content that Oracle provides to you completely free of charge and is based on our experience with our customers of the most frequently asked for items that customers experience during their digital transformations. And you can see it's broken down into sections. So if I was to say, I need to support my employees during self-service absence request, because it might be a new thing to go self-service, we can come in here and see all of this content is available immediately for you. You can preview any of that, whether it's a smart tip and say, well, you know, maybe this is the tip that you need to show people. Some of them are tips, some of them are beacons, some of them are messages. So you might have a message that says organization based on whatever it is. You can see what it is. And then you can say, well, actually, that kind of fits my need. You click on the add button. And now it's in your content. So you'll see my numeric here has gone up. I'm up to 3 guides. And there is the item I added. If I want to edit that, I've got 2 options. I can edit purely the text and just make some terminology changes, or I could add in a link or an image. But you can also edit perhaps how it behaves. So if I open up the full editor, you can come in and you can change the way the guide behaves. You can change the conditions on which it appears so that it isn't just for self-service. You may be wanting to make this available to managers as well. As you can see, the editor's opened here. This is not writing lots of code. It is very easy to use. Now, what we've also included, I'm not going to make any changes there. At the bottom here, there is learning included, some videos to get you started. You've also got the dashboards. Now, I'm just going to pop to a slightly different account with some live data in it and come to here so you can look at our data and our analytics. Let's look at our latest dashboards and see what's happening. And if I put the right date in over the past year, I can see, because we only recently had 23C, you can see exactly when it started. All of these dashboards are exportable. If you want to find further analysis, you absolutely can. But you can drill down and start to understand the user behavior. You can understand where users are dropping out of guides. You can see what are the most frequently used guides. You can gather feedback from your users on guides. And my favorite, which Tony, you will have to stop me talking about, you know how carried away I get with this one, search terms. I love this dashboard. It gives me complete visibility of what my users are asking for help on without having to actually go and ask somebody. I can see that I've had 7 people search for expenses. Now that might not seem like a lot, but this is a new environment. It tells me that we don't have something there or they're not finding it. So I can immediately use that to feed in and say, okay, we need to go and find some support for expenses, whether that's a use case from the library or whether you create completely custom content. All of those things give you insight into your users' needs. You can enable feedback so that the users are presented periodically with the option to give you feedback on the guidance itself. And again, that drives how you're interacting with your users. What is it they want from you? What do they want to see? What works well? What would they like to change? All sorts of content here. I'm very conscious of time, Tony, so we've got 10 minutes left. Is there anything here that anybody would like to see, or Tony, you'd like me to cover that I haven't talked about already?
No, I think that's a very good overview. Unless anyone else has anything specifically, please pop it in the chat. What I'll do, I'll leave you there just for a second. I've now I'm not presenting. I can actually find these polls that I wanted to show. So I was going to launch one of these polls now. Let's see what sort of feedback we can get from our attendees today. Okay, so hopefully you can see the poll. Please let me know if you can't. So we've got 40% of our attendees actually using Guide. Well, actually, it's coming down now. There we go. More people are responding. So 65% or 60% of our attendees are currently not using guided learning. So this, OGLI, the OGL included version, as I think Carl asked the question on the chat, it's a very good way of assessing guided learning for your business and for your use cases, because you'll have those 15 items, and we'll cover those again in just a second, that will help you to identify the potential return on investment that Oracle Guided Learning can provide your organization. And certainly where we've got users that are decentralized, we've got one of our customers we're implementing for at the moment, where we've got 5,500 users will all be using iProcurement. They are separated across I think 800 branches. So trying to get that training to that user community is very difficult. So we're using guided learning to drive a lot of that change, drive the communication, have the in-application guides that will walk them through the process, and obviously the smart tips that you've shown there that will help them in terms of the data inputting and understanding the policies that reside around the business as well. I'm also going to just ask how many of us here are actually using Fusion, because guided learning is based on HTML. So I know that Sanjaya, I think, asked whether this could be used with eBusiness Suite, and unfortunately not. But obviously, if you've got any of the other applications such as JD Edwards, which is HTML based, as well as PeopleSoft, then there are definitely options there to use guided learning. So I hope that answers some of those questions. So we've got currently 79-80% of our attendees here are using Fusion. So that's fantastic. So I'll start sharing my screen again if I can. Here we go. So hopefully you can see my screen here. I just want to talk about the offerings that are available, and my screen's moving me around all over the place here. Now we've got the included option, which, as we've mentioned, gives you 15 items. That's concurrent items, and those are a mixture of smart tips, guides, messages, beacons, the things that Rachel has just shown you. You also get included with that the business process training that I discussed, as well as those library of use cases that Rachel kindly showed you, as well as the analytics on the back end to do some analysis as well. On the right hand side is the premium version, which Oracle will give you, once you've signed up to the premium version, a base library of guides that are related to the application that you are running. So if you're an ERP user, those guides will be relevant to your ERP applications. If you're a HCM user, so on and so forth. So within that, you can also have the enhanced features. I know Carl asked around multi-languages, so you can have the deployment of multiple languages, and they are dealt with through machine-based translation. You can also embed surveys and polls to your user community as well, and you will get an assigned customer success manager with Oracle. Now, on top of that, you have the option of having a managed service, whether that be with Oracle or with Fudge, to give you that ongoing support and enhancement that you may require. And just to bring that to life slightly in a separate way, as we can see here, you will in the included version, as I said, get the assets that we've mentioned, the use case library, the process training, the analytics, and you'll get that OGL support and training that's available from Oracle there as well. And as I say, the premium versions where you get all the base guides and the real detail that's already been developed in terms of those process guides.
And updated quarterly, free of charge, every quarter.
I knew I'd missed that one again. You're absolutely right, Rachel. And those guides are updated every quarter along with your quarterly releases. So just to bring this to life a little bit more, to make sure that's understood, these are concurrent items in OGLI. Each item counts as a single one. As Rachel showed you on the console, you can see the number count that's on the top right-hand side. And those items are listed here. So you've got your process guides, which are taking the users step by step. You have your beacons, which are the red flashing item that Rachel showed you. The smart tips are where you hover and it pops up with information. The messages that help you create content that are relevant to specific users based on communication you would like to demonstrate to them. You can also create links to external content and task lists within the widget itself. So hopefully that will bring that slightly more to life for you there. And I'm not going to go on about the benefits. I think we've already been through that, but certainly you can see that in terms of communication, driving down your help desk support requests and managing the change of these guides is very simple, and really embedding the training. You know, my personal opinion is that this isn't a training tool. You know, I think that you need full training, certainly in terms of the use of the system itself, but it's there to put an arm around you and drive that knowledge as you go from go live all the way through into BAU, and it will deliver that in point of need support that users certainly require.
Just one point, Tony, very quickly. Yeah. You mentioned from go live. We have also many customers who use guided learning during user acceptance testing. So as long as you have a stable environment, you don't have to have gone live. Guided learning can be deployed in a UAT environment and support that, because you will have differences. Maybe it's a different sign-in, for example, and everybody who tries to log into your UAT environment is getting a problem because they're trying single sign-on. Maybe that's not enabled for UAT. A simple smart tip could be there to say, remember, you have a specific login for UAT. And that's something that we see used an awful lot.
Yeah, very good point, Rachel. Thank you. So next steps, if you're not already a guided learning included customer, or you haven't activated it, there's the link here. I'll share this out. That we've got an ebook that I'm about to put on the chat for everyone as well. And really it's a case of, you know, registering that interest, submit the form that you'll be given navigation to, and then there's approximately a 48-hour turnaround in terms of provisioning. So it's very straightforward. We have, you probably saw on the notes when we presented this webinar, that everyone that's here will enter a free competition that we've put together. so that we're offering some free consultancy to the person that wins that competition. So good luck with that, and obviously thank you for listening today. I guess I'll stop presenting for now, but if there's any specific questions that anyone has, please feel free to ask away. We've got a few minutes left, and we'll pick up on some of those. Rachel, is there any while I'm uploading the guide, anything specific in there?
Answering a couple. So Jeff's asked, is free OGL a separate BOM item, so you need to specify it? No, it's already there in Fusion. If you have Fusion, then you have OGLI. You simply need to request an activation via the link that Tony is providing. You will be sent the information directly, but if you go to the link that Tony's popping into the materials that he's sharing, you can access that directly, request that it's activated, and that's it. It's completely free of charge. Carl, you've asked, is it easy to port from one pod to another, i.e. UAT and production? Guided learning can point to as many environments as you wish in a single account. You configure it as you wish. It will be the same content potentially in both, but what we usually recommend is that guided learning is built in a dev environment, and a single click of a publish button will transfer that to prod for you. So there is no porting of guides. You simply publish the guide if you want it visible in prod. If you don't publish, it's only going to be available in dev, or whichever environments you've configured as dev. So hopefully that answers that question. I'm just checking to see if I've missed any more. Please do pop them in the chat and I'll go through as many as I can.
We've got a message from Sanjay asking, will it provide technical fix help? I'm not entirely sure what the question is there, Sanjay. Do you mean the link, or do you mean
guided learning, or for one of the things we didn't talk about? And if I can quickly just share my screen, I will show you that if I come to here and go back into my guided learning account, can you see that okay, Tony?
Yes. Yep.
Great. So in my content, in my editor, in my console, you will see I've also got a widget. We put guided learning on top of guided learning. So as an administrator of guided learning, you've got all the information you need: documentation, access to support, learning materials, interactive tours. So I'm not sure if that's what you were asking for, Sanjaya, but maybe that's answered your question. If not, just let me know in the chat.
So Amanda has asked that the screenshots that are included in some of the guides, do they need to be maintained following releases if screens have changed? So, well, I'll let you answer that, Rachel, but I know the answer.
Okay, yes. So the answer is yes, if it's impacting the process, and it's very simple to do that. So let me just go into my guided learning account. I'm going to go into one that I know I can edit. Oh, I've lost it. I've got way too many accounts here. When you edit a guide, the editor itself captures those screenshots as you're building. So it's a simple click. I'm sorry, I'm really struggling to click the right button here. Let's try. No, not that one. There we are. Sorry, I'll get there in the end. When I edit a guide, you will see launches my editor. It opens it up on top of my application, and let's say that my initial screen, I need to recapture that screenshot. If I open up all of my steps, I can simply capture a screenshot. My camera's not there. Because it's a tip, it doesn't have a screenshot, that's why. Helps if I open a process. Yes, I want to discard that. But when you're creating a process, let me just create a brand new one. Here we go. So you can see me creating a whole new process. As I open up my editor, here it comes. There is a little camera icon. I'm going to add, as I highlight, I'm going to say that's where I want my tip. Here it is. So it's created the step, and I can simply add in my text, and that's generating the screenshot as I'm going. To edit that, it's as simple, if I save it, I can simply go in and then click on the camera icon to then recapture that screenshot if it's required. So it's very simple. It's a single click into the guide to recapture the screenshot.
Fantastic. And I think that so Sanjay is asking a question about changing package or procedure or configuration, etc. Not entirely sure of the question, but I think certainly if you've got a change in process, you would need to exactly what Rachel's just done there. Edit and re-record your guide, and the three main things with guided learning are your roles. So your roles need to be correct, your system roles, and you need to understand the system roles and how they're mapping to the user community to make sure that they're all correct. But the system roles will drive a lot of the where the content will be provided in the system, but also the configuration needs to be baselined. If there's a change in configuration, then you will need to look at the guided learning guide again to make sure that it's performing as it should do. So, obviously as a managed service provider, we would do regression testing every quarter to make sure that guided learning, there's no changes that may be impacted. So that's important too. Sanjay, I'm not sure if that answers your question, but obviously the last thing to bear in mind is data as well. So, they're the three key items when you're building Oracle guided learning, unless Rachel has got any other comments around that.
No, not at all. Just wanted to point out, and I think it was Carl you were asking about porting. So you can see here I've created that guide. It's created in Dev. If I wanted to push it to prod, I simply click publish, and that will push it out to my designated prod environment. So there's no porting at all. And you'll also notice you have complete version history here as well. So should you produce something, publish it, it's not what the users want, you can very easily and quickly restore a previous version.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, everyone. I'm aware we're kind of run over slightly, and that's because of my technical issues at the beginning. So thanks for giving me your patience. I was going to attach the ebook that we've presented, but for some reason, again, Teams isn't allowing me to do that this time. So I'm going to make sure that's emailed to everyone that's in attendance, and we'll get that out to you ASAP. And obviously, we'll come back to you regarding the competition. In the meantime, if you'd like any further information, please do not hesitate to reach out to myself and the team here at FudgeLearn, and we'll do everything we can to help you. So for now, thanks very much, and we really much appreciate your time.
Thanks, everybody. It's been lovely with your questions.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.